Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chennard. I'm here with Glenn Willis and Tyler Jones. We're recording on a Thursday after a couple of losses to the Washington Wizards. I want to start by saying that I lied last episode where I was going to put audio of Seth Lundy at the end of the episode right over my head. I forgot to do it, so I will do it this episode. Uh, but Another loss to the Wizards. The injuries are piling up. What did we learn about the Hawks shorthanded again in another loss to the Wizards?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I'll hop in real quick, if that's okay. So
no, that's good.
right now, leaning on the depth pieces, it feels like they can either put offensive lineups out or defensive lineups out. They can't put both out right now, right? Garrison helps your spacing a lot. We know he's a small defender, right? Even though he works hard and all that sort of stuff. Roddy can get to spots in the paint, with the ball, and he can play on the catch. On defense, he just can't keep his man in front, and you can't have him be low man. He helps breathe out a little bit, and so you kind of have that going for you. And then, but if you take Matthews off to put a defender on, say Keaton Wallace, who was good on offense in the few minutes he played in this game,
He was.
he's worked really hard to make himself a functional player. A little bit more every year. That's how development should work. But then still, Trey's not going to have the space to kind of do his thing. And one of the reasons Trey had a better game in the second game versus the Wizards was that the Hawks were leaning into offensive lineups. But then what lost the game was they couldn't contain the ball, pulling in from the weak side, wide open threes, that sort of thing. So I don't know. Hashtag I'm not an NBA coach. How do you kind of get lineups on the floor that has some capability on both ends? Right now, that seems like a pretty tough formula to find.
Yeah, to me, I think the one thing that was pretty clear, again, trying to find this mix, is that David Roddy was better when Trey was off because he got to have the ball more.
Yep.
Yes.
He has to have the ball in his hands to make offense work with him out there. If he's standing off the ball, they just don't take him seriously. Whereas when he has it, he's steady enough with the ball. He can get in the paint and make good decisions. He's got that nice little floater game, little baby hooks and stuff like that. That all
Okay.
kind of works to make him, a reasonably decent offensive threat, but he has to have the ball. So to me, as much as you hate seeing like Garrison Matthews next to Trey on defense, like I still think that like maybe those two with Clint, something like that is the best way to go. And then make sure that Roddy is on when Trey comes off, because when it was Roddy and Jalen Johnson and Clint Capella all on the floor at the same time, Trey had no space, no chance of doing
Yep.
anything. He could have been the world's greatest basketball player in NBA history. He wasn't going to be able to do it with that spacing. Like it was just they were on top of him. And as soon as
Yeah.
Garrison came in, it started to get a little bit functional.
Um, it's pretty wild how smart NBA teams are. They like teams today just don't allow you to get away with non-functional offensive lineups. Like if a coach notices you're starting two or three non-shooters, they are going to really like hound your ball creator. Um, to me, I think that there's some things Quinn can do in the short term. I actually think to start games, he may want to go with a Kongu at center. If Ricochet and Jalen are going to start, I think to because what was happening was when a Kongu was in the game, oftentimes either Jalen or Ricochet wasn't in the game, so the Hawks were small. They were just naturally small, regardless of the other three guys in the I think Quinn needs to be intentional of maximizing the size on the roster when he can with the Kongu. So I would start the Kongu at center or Nance. To me, it doesn't matter. But like either one, just to just to primarily primarily like maximize your Okongwu minutes, center minutes, and maximize your Capella minutes. And then I would start at, besides Trey at the guard spot, keeping Wallace for point of attack defense, so that we can keep Ricochet off of being the primary point of attack defender, which I thought he actually acquitted himself pretty well overall. But that's not. I don't want my 19-year-old having to guard the team's best offensive player in his first week of basketball. Like we can ease him into that position, maybe get him to do it, 5 to 8 minutes of his playing time, but not for like the full. Like I mean, he's guarding Jordan Poole, and again, I thought he actually did a pretty good job overall. But there were certain spurts of like committing dump, not knowing that elite offensive players know how to bait officials into getting you technical fouls, into getting you into foul trouble. Like he literally caught a couple fouls just not understanding how NBA officials referee. That's what it felt like to me during that game. It's a good learning experience, but it really put the Hawks in the back foot defensively when they're in foul trouble, and now they can't, play physical and they're playing from behind, et cetera, et cetera. So, like to me, I think at least to get the first 5 or so minutes of the game, I understand Capella's the veteran, but I just to me, like I think Quinn really needs to think less of like Capella and Okongwu as like talented players and more of like functions. Like he's got to be more formulaic in these lineups and more intentional because he can't you just can't have stretches where Kongu's on the floor with David Roddy at power forward next to Garrison Matthews and Trey Young. Like what you there's no way you're going to be able to function as a basketball team. So and so like something we found with Roddy is having him have the ball in his hands. You might be able to buy some more minutes with Trey off the floor, having Roddy lean into that a bit more, maybe alongside of Jake. So like there were some positives to take away. And like I've been harsher on Roddy than I mean to be. It's just that I just feel like Quinn's got to be careful how he uses him because he's such a volatile player for what the Hawks are trying to do.
Yeah, we got a party here, a couple of special guests I want to introduce to him. So I have Log Hawk Wes, man in charge over at Peachtree Hoops, jumping in here, and one of the OG Hawks podcasters, Josh Lane. I hope that's the Josh that I'm seeing in front of me. I'm
Kaka.
guessing it is. Josh Lane was introduced me to podcast. He's the first person to ever have me on a podcast. That's probably why his podcast doesn't exist anymore. It's probably a mistake on his part. It also might be because he's a dad. Josh, I just have to ask: is your son dressed as Marvin Williams for Halloween?
No, we couldn't get any shorts big enough to for that, or all the shorts were too big. So sadly, not this time.
Oh, so what is your son dressed as for Halloween?
We dressed him up as a small um, triceratops. Sorry,
Wow.
I forgot what it was. I was about to say a rhino. I'm like that thing with the horns. Yeah.
I wouldn't know any
So
better
pretty
than
much
that.
a
Well,
raptor.
great, you guys. Let's get the listeners hear from us all the time. Let's get like one minute from each of you on how you're feeling about what you've seen so far. Wes, why don't you hop in there first and tell us like how are you feeling right now about where the Hawks are? We know the injuries, we know they're 2-3, we know Hawks fans are frustrated. You only have to spend 3 seconds on Twitter to figure that out. But how are you feeling about where they are right now, Wes?
Um, I mean, if you look past the injuries, I mean, I'd like to honestly think to say that I feel pretty good about it. As far as them kind of picking up on some of the newer wrinkles in the offense. I think being able to, uh, they have, like you say, it's hard for them to come up with lineups that are great on both ends of the floor, but they do at least have sort of the puzzle pieces where they can solve any issue that gets thrown that way. Like, last couple of seasons, they didn't really have anybody at the point of attack. If they needed to shut down a guard, like they just really didn't have answers for that. They're compensating in other ways. But now it's, if you get a healthy Dyson Daniels, he's even missing a game, he's still leading the league in deflections right now. He's obviously been someone who can kind of blow up your play on the perimeter. So, having him has been, a little bit of revelation. Hawks fans haven't seen someone this disruptive on the perimeter in so long. So, hoping that his injury is not too serious, seeing he'll be out for the Kings game as well. Hunter, I think Hunter has made strides under Quinn's offense. He's been more decisive. He's shooting pretty well. He's getting to the rim more. It's unfortunately that his knee is flaring up again. So it's kind of like you can go kind of individually, guys, and that extends to, Trey and Jalen, and you can even go down to Garrison. Like, I think maybe outside of the center rotation, just about everybody has made some progress, at least some progress in the way you would want to see, picking up on schemes, having a little bit more of a mentality of, um, at least on defense, be a little aggressive and ball pressure and get into them. And um, unfortunately, like I said, I think the big issue has been the rotation's been thin. You can tell they've kind of slowed down the fourth quarter. They've had their worst defensive performances. I tweeted that out earlier today. They've had the worst defensive performances in the fourth quarter. Some of that is just really hot shooting from other teams, but and then to have the wave of injuries hit just kind of be tough. But I think if they can get through this, like I kind of say, tread water. I think they've got at least a roster that's better able to mix and match. I think they've got guys who are willing to buy in. They've got guys who've shown some progress between, the offseason and five games.
I have a question for everybody,
Okay.
and I think it's looking past the injuries. Like, if you think about what the Hawks are going to be at some point, like to me, the core right now is Trey, Dyson, Zachary, Jalen. If you
For
play
sure.
those four guys together, what do you want in a fifth player?
Yeah, so this is definitely something I've thought about as well. Like when you look around the league, like it's so hard to have, a center who like really what you want in your center is a guy who can at least who can either, move the ball, make quick decisions, whether that's in the high post or low post, short roll. You either want a guy who can move the ball or who can just stretch the floor. And, the Hawks don't really have either of those things, to some degree. I do like, someone like Larry Nance he's been willing to put up threes. He hadn't really shot a ton of threes in New Orleans, but looks like he's putting up a good rate of them now to at least kind of stretch the floor. And the Kong was still trying to shoot, corner threes. Um, they were kind of exclusively kind of running him off of hammer actions where he'd get a screen in the corner and shoot it. Now he's kind of letting it fly a little bit more. It's not quite going down, but it seems like you want that kind of versatility from your five in the way that Quinn wants to play, at least on offense. Someone who can either move the ball or stretch the floor, and that's that doesn't really look like that answers the long-term answers on the roster exactly. Um, maybe defensively, I think it's a little bit cleaner picture. It looks like they've, you know, at times, I think especially against like the Nets, a team like the Nets, Okongwu had a great game on both ends of the floor where, he can switch out. They were trying to put like, Dorian Finney-Smith on him and he was rim rolling and defensively he was able to kind of patrol around and pick out his spots. But it's sort of tough with all, the different ways that a lot of teams are playing. Everybody's trying to really spread you out and space the floor, and that center position can get picked on if you don't have that kind of a versatile guy. You're kind of behind the curve at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, to me, Kevin, and I want to swing it back to Josh here when we can. Um, I think unless you have one of the top five centers in the league, you got to have some skill diversity. You have to have different kinds of centers on your roster.
Sure.
I mean, everybody'd love to have Brooke Lopez. I mean, the Brooke Lopez would be the like if you could find the next Brooke Lopez and play him with those four, you're good. You're good.
Is the next Brooke Lopez Chet Holmgren?
I mean, he's never going to be nearly as physical as Brook, right? I mean,
No.
offensively, maybe there's some, something there, but I mean, Brook consumes so much space on defense. Like, just he consumes so much space on defense, and that's different. Gasol, not the shooter, but I mean, Gasol, ball handler, DHO passer. Marc Gasol is just another kind of guy. But we're talking about perennial all stars, and
Yeah.
Powell also, right? Powell could shoot it and was just savvy on defense and those sorts of things. And you kind of think like, who are those next guys, that are kind of coming up that might be able to do that, right? I mean, and right now you look across the league at the up and coming offensive centers. Everyone loves Şengün, right? But he's a mess on defense, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to have two or three different kinds of centers that you can swing, depending on matchup and things like that. But it is, I think shooting is a key skill to having at least one center if those are your core four you're building around. And the Hawk, I mean, Nance is an above average shooter for the position, but he's not the biggest defender at the position in the world. So he defends in space well, and he's a good communicator. He's a good connector and organizer, but he's not the biggest. He's bigger than O, but he's not not super big. So I feel like Kongwu plus a bigger center who can shoot. I think like kind of getting two guys like that would be the way to go.
Yeah, this is actually something Andrew Kelly on Twitter. Uh, he's talked about this a lot. How Okongwu and Capella have too much skill overlap, and so you know those two in 48 minutes, like they're really not providing much diversity in their game at the moment. Their primary, like Okongwu's best skill is rolling to the rim, and so is Capella on offense. Like that's just the
I
reality.
disagree, though. I disagree.
I mean, the way he's used for the Hawks, we
Yeah,
could he be used differently? Sure, but like what's happening on the floor is when Okongwu's in the game, if he's not rolling to the rim, uh, uh he's not touching the ball. Like it's one of those things. Like his usage is just not there. They don't, they're not running post ups for him. They're not running ISOs at the top of the key to get him isolated on a smaller defender and let him go to work. Like they're not. He's not doing those things. Those things are going to Jalen Johnson. If anything. So it's an issue of you have to me in the NBA today. If you're not one of the true elite centers, and right now, like to me, it's Jokic and Embiid as the like true elites. Uh, I mean, you got. It's not that the rest aren't good to great, but it's just like if you're not a true elite player, like you're more dependent based on the other four guys on the you're sharing the floor with. Like your your positive, like your contributions, it depends so much on. Okay, if I'm a Kongu, do I have size next to me so that when I go to help, we're not just dead in the water. If I step up on the floor, do I have somebody back behind me who I can trust to defend a shot at the rim? If I don't, I can't get out there. And that's just reality. Or if I'm Capella on offense, if I'm on the floor next to David Roddy and Jalen Johnson, how am I going to do anything on offense? Like, how are we as a team going to do anything? How where is the spacing on the floor going to be? So that's where one of my original points is like Quinn has to be more intentional about not caring about the personalities of the player, but just plugging in, who goes with which four players, and that being the center rotation. And if that means that either a Kongu or Capella plays less than their 23 minutes because Larry Nance is a better fit for what the Hawks need on the floor at that moment, then Quinn needs to do that. If we're talking long term, what would ideal center for the Hawks? That's I kind of don't know. Like, truth be told, like that everybody has strengths and weaknesses outside of the elites. Jalen could be the center. If
No.
Ricochet, if the Ricochet keeps showing me stuff with his if he can gain some more weight and play the four consistently, maybe you throw Jalen out there at center and you roll with Dyson as your point of attack defender, so you're able to get a bogey out there and get more additional shooting because I like to me, I think ideally if you're gonna have Trey Dyson, Shea, and Jalen on the floor, you want like an elite shooter next to those guys to maximize. But that can only work if Shea defensively, because like I mean, Shea is getting some blocks, man. Like and he's challenging shots at the rim. Like this is it's pretty impressive what he's doing on the defensive side of the floor. We may
Yeah,
be able to talk about
yeah.
that later, but
He's
like to me, it doesn't have to be a center next to those four guys.
Yeah,
Is my
no, I
opinion.
left it open. I didn't say, I don't think I said center. I hope I didn't.
yeah, yeah. No,
You didn't.
yeah. I mean, I'm a little worried about Jalen playing center. I mean, I think it should be an option they go to when it serves them well. But he has to do it some to be able to do it when they need him to do it. Because you can't never have him play center and then in the 30th game of the year, okay, we're going to put you at center, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's so contextualized too. If you have a center who is like one of the top three defenders in the league, and you're ending possessions with a rebound, you don't need as much from that guy on offense, right? If right, so there is some give and take across that, but I still think most teams are trying to find centers with different skills. Now, I want to make it clear, like Andrew's a smart basketball guy, thoughtful guy. I just think Okongwu could handle and pass, and Clint can't, right? I don't know how. I think Tyler made a great point. I don't know how much you can scale that up because of Jalen, right? I don't want to take those opportunities away from Jalen. Jalen's better at both of those things by a lot than Okongwu, right? And so there's a little bit of overlap between Jalen and Okongwu in that way too, right? And who's initiating your five out and all that sort of stuff. Josh, who do you want to be the fifth player with those guys? What kind of player?
Well, first of all, I want to say it is fantastic the upgrades and improvements you have done to ATL and 29 Studios. I am loving it, what you guys have done. um, I joked about this with one of my buddies, and I said, ironically, if the Hawks had prime Hawks Al Horford, that would be a fantastic, almost perfect center to go with these guys. But
But this is
Oh,
Josh to your point. This is why Larry
yeah,
Nance could be that guy. Like Larry Nance looks in the limited minutes that he's played.
yeah,
Larry Nance has looked really good, especially next to
he's
Jalen
good. He's
and
good.
Trey.
He's
Like,
really good.
and that's
Yeah.
that's that's where we go to the point. Like Quinn got to just play who his best guys. Like we don't have the depth. Like currently with Bogey out, especially
Yeah.
Quinn just got to play whoever is going to be the best next to those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. People ask me like, because I said on Twitter, it's like it was driving me crazy that Quinn was playing a Kongwu versus Valanciunas and Clint versus. Sorry, finally in the fourth quarter he switched it up. Right in the fourth quarter, tell me what you think. My guess is he wanted a Kongwu on with Jalen while Trey was off, so that Jalen had a more outlet, at the other big. But I still think he was too a little too stubborn with that one, across three quarters. But I mean, easy for me to say. Quinn's probably thinking about eight different things as an input into how he's deciding who to play when, and all that sort of stuff. So uh, yeah, yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, I think Nance, right, especially right now, I think Nance gives them Nance makes things easier offensively in their current state because they need shooting wherever they can get shooting, right? They just don't have enough shooting available, and giving him, I don't know, 24, whatever number of minutes, it helps. It helps Trey. It helps you maybe not have to play Garrison in a lineup where the defense falls apart, because you have some shooting to put on the floor with him. Roddy is making enough right now, like, on the, I mean, he's making his open threes, and I don't think he's some high level shooter, but he's making them, So for me, I think, like, I understand the defensive baseline Clint establishes for you, but because they don't have Bogey, because they don't have Dyson, attacking the rim from the wing, I think they're gonna have to really lean on Nance. That's my view.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
other thing,
Oh, go
we
ahead.
we've talked about obviously kind of opening up the floor for everybody. The other thing is, you know, Quinn really likes a good like DHO sort of center. I think the screening has not been great, at least as term of like screening to get Reece or Garrison Matthews coming off, catching, come off a screen, catch and shoot, sort of motion, sort of 3-point stuff. I don't think that's been great. Garrison's been pretty good at finding some spaces, but Reece it's you really want to kind of with him making the jump to the NBA, like I think you really need to look at a guy who's able to DHO and give the ball up and send an immediate screen for someone. If that's a good way to kind of open the floor for your wings and get them a little bit more space to catch and shoot.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
for to answer my own question, for me, like I think, I sort of asked it as an open-ended question, like what is it going to be next year? But for like this year, I really want to see those four players playing with Nance. Like, I want to see what that looks like because just that combination of Daniels and Jalen, like it's they do so much. Like Jalen's an unbelievable rebounder. Dyson, it just completely changes your defense as a point of attack defender. Like they can add so much, but together to get those two out there, you've got to have more shooting. Like Trey needs a little bit more shooting. He's had a lot of turnovers this season, and I think big part of that is the floor is a lot more cramped around him. And if you get a center who can shoot, it's not just a center that can shoot. It's a center with some other center skill. But like to me, like it has to be a shooter to make this work because if you have a non-shooter at center, it's asking an awful lot of Trey. Uh, it's just going to be an awful grind for him to do that for as many games as there are in an NBA season.
Yeah. Do I mean, I feel like I have no idea when these guys are going to be back. Like literally no information to work with. It
I mean, the Hunter injury is just so weird because it's changed a couple of times in the injury report, and now it's injury management. Bogey is 4 weeks plus, Kobe is 4 weeks plus, but he was out there shooting today. Um, yeah, it's really sort of left open, and I don't know that we know. Like,
yeah, it's
don't
it's
know
it's
that we
hard for
know.
fans. I mean, I don't think it's that unusual for teams to put out the minimum information, or what have you. I think that's kind of a standard. It's frustrating for
Yep.
fans for sure. It's
Sure.
frustrating for me to. I want to throw myself into that group too. It's frustrating for me to not really know what to expect in the next 3 games. Like, are we getting any of these guys back? Are we getting none of these guys back? I have literally no idea. And that's not fun.
the
And
the the Hunter one seems concerning because this is what happened last year.
Yeah.
They put him on the injury management thing, and he basically missed 20 games straight, or so it was like a 15 or 12 to 15 game stretch where he just didn't play at all. It was just injury management. Then he came back and had the best stretch of basketball of his career. So, maybe that's something to look forward to with Hunter. So I could totally see a scenario where Pete Krejci is the besides Dyson, who probably like just based on the injury Dyson has, he's probably like got a couple more games, maybe. Beat's got 2 weeks plus. So we'll see. But I could totally see Hunter being on that 4 week group next to Bogey and Kobe, just based on what happened with him last year. It's not fun to talk about, and it's super frustrating because overall, and I want to talk about this season for a bit more, just because like to me, a lot of the upside really relied on Bogey carrying the scoring load when Trey is off the floor.
yep,
And now with him not in the picture for the foreseeable future, on a hamstring, hamstrings, that could be a 2 month injury. They can say whatever they want. You just don't know with hamstrings. And I don't know what type of procedure he had. So we'll see and what type of condition he's going to be back in. But like, we might not see him till December, maybe. So like the issue is that really like caps their ceiling of what they could be as a team unless somebody steps up. And a positive though is that it's going to force Jalen and Risha Shane in particular to be way more assertive and aggressive, and Dyson as well once he comes back. Because Dyson's going to come back pretty soon. I'm not too worried about his injury, but it's going to force those three guys to be more aggressive than they want to be on the offensive side of the floor. Because if they're not, we're just not going to score points. And so I really like, you know, overall for this season, it's not great, but for long term, like this is a big like this is kind of really good for Risha Shea in particular because
Hmm.
it's going to force him to play with more aggression and a more assertiveness. I liked what he did against the Wizards. You know, it doesn't have like it doesn't have to look good. And I think that's something I think Quinn was kind of talking about post game. I was reading what he was saying where it's just like, his mind and his body got to catch up with each other. And like it's not always going to be clean. Like and so that's where we go back to the Larry Nance point. Nance can really help somebody like Risha Shea out a lot. He can really help somebody like Jalen out a lot more than somebody. Not to say Capella doesn't do a good or bad job, regardless of how I feel about on Twitter. It's just his his inclinations and his talent level on the offensive end really doesn't help them get to where they want to go on the floor. Like Reese Shea needs good screening. Like he just does. He
Yeah.
doesn't have the strength right now to create that separation consistently. He needs better screening. Nance can set a good screen. Okongwu, when he's motivated, sets good screens. You just kind of don't know what you get from Okongwu sometimes. I was really frustrated what he did last game. I felt like that was a step back for him as an individual. But this overall, I think this is good for those guys' development.
Yeah, if you're playing a team that can't contain the roller, the pick and roll, that's useful in that game, right? But there aren't that many teams that don't figure out a way to basically wall off the guy, the big roll into the rim or whatever. And then you got Clint initiating pistol and DHO. They're running a lot of pistol for Hunter, and when he's been out, they've been running it now for Jalen. And it's fine, but Nance is the best of the three at that. Congo's second best of the three at that, and so when you kind of get into those other things, and then Clint's not the finisher he was 2 years ago too. We've talked about that before. Statistically, all you gotta do is look at the stats, right? He fell off like 8 to 10% last year. His finishing at the rim. He's getting older. He's played a million minutes. I'm going to be general about how many minutes you say Clint's played because I was wrong on the number last time. A question I have though is I'm asking on behalf of Hawks fans, how egregious is it that they haven't figured something out with Zeller? Because if they had another guard right now, I think it would make a big difference. Now I've gone and looked at who are the free agents are, and there's not someone who's going to like come in and there's not a shooter. There's not an actual point guard. I mean, some people will say Markel Fultz, but you're throwing another non-shooter on the floor if that's the guy you go get. Dennis Smith Jr., who I love defensively, and he's a good spot up shooter. He's not a point guard, not in any way, shape, or form is he a point guard. So there's not much out there. So it'd probably take a trade, and it's hard to trade before December 15th in a lot of cases because a lot of guys, depending upon what the transaction that got him on a roster, can't be dealt till December 15th. But are Hawks fans fair to be upset that that's a wasted roster spot right
I'll
now?
I'll say this, Glenn. If they were able to get, was it Trey Jones or Tyus Jones, whichever the Jones brother they were in on in free agency, that chose less money to start for the Suns. It's not like they weren't trying, and they were. It sounded like they offered real money to him. So I do think it's smart that they're not going to just uh do stuff just to do stuff. Like, okay, we're going to get Markel Fultz on the roster. Like Markel Fultz isn't helping this team right. So like I think if that player were available, I would be annoyed they weren't actively going to get him. The only so like the Zeller thing, I want to put that to the side. I just, to me, what they can do is use Capella, Nance's salary, either one, it doesn't matter, to find somebody who can soak up some minutes until Bogey comes back. Because like this, Trey is not going to last throughout a season doing this much. Uh, like
That's maybe the
it's
biggest issue.
impossible. So it's this is not a cut Zeller to find somebody. This is a trade Capella or Nance alongside potentially a pick to get somebody who might ultimately play less than 6 minutes a game if everybody's healthy. Like it's going to be a bad value trade, but for the current mold, they got to do something to help Trey.
Any disagreement with that, guys?
Yeah, I mean, well, I would disagree. I personally think they should just go ahead and waive Cody Zeller. Um, just based on what I've got. I keep a spreadsheet of where they're at financially, and obviously we know how they operate near the tax line. But they could waive Zeller, sign someone to a non-guaranteed contract, and then waive that person by the guarantee date in January. You know, just and stay under the tax. And even if they go over the tax, you can always make a trade at the trade deadline and get under the tax. But we
There you go.
obviously know how
Thank-
this organization operates. So
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the counterpoint there, Wes. So we got that covered off. So thanks, Wes. Thanks, Josh, for jumping in. Great to have you. And with that, we'll say good
Yep.
night, Bob.
Good night, Bob. Uh, just first, could we just ask you like how you're doing health wise? Like how close do you feel like you are to returning?
I mean, I feel like right now I'm just taking it day by day. Honestly, I'm in no rush to come back. I mean, I've talked to the trainers and coaches already. Like, I feel like my health is a priority to me. So I'm gonna just come back when I'm 100%, when I'm comfortable enough to play and confident enough to play. So I mean, we had talks about it. So I mean, there's really no timeline on it. We're just going day by day, week by week with it. So I mean, hopefully it's sooner than later though. So.
How excited are you to return here as a two-way guy and kind of maintain the culture that you helped build last year when you were down here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited to, get back playing with College Park again. I feel like just, that momentum you built playing with College Park and then, going up with the Hawks, like it's just that confidence level carries over and, just building that confidence is key. I feel like the best way to get better at basketball is by playing basketball. So, just playing and competing at a high level and then be able to keep that momentum going once you get called up is definitely key.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butt in.
Good.
What do you feel like you had to work on? You kind of got the shooting thing down. So what did you feel like you needed to work on and improve on?
I mean, honestly, I just feel like I just need to become a better defender. I feel like if I just become like a great perimeter defender, like there's no reason why I shouldn't be playing. I mean, obviously everybody know about my offensive abilities, but like I mean, honestly, like just being around Dyson, for an example, like man, like I'll be studying his defense. Like, I don't really study too many people offensive game, but like just watching him defensively, like it actually is like it opened my eye a little bit. Like if I could do that, like I'll be on the court 100%. And it's just like I'll be seeing the stuff that he do in the weight room, the defensive stuff he do. Like it's very unique because not a lot of people actually do that type of stuff that he works on. And it's like if I'll be able to start doing that and learn from him, yeah, I feel like I'll be in this league for a very long time.
Can you give us an example of that unique stuff that he's working on?
Yeah, I mean, you really don't see many people being in the weight room and like working on defensive type of stuff. Like, I mean, obviously people work on certain parts of their body, strengthen that up. But like, I mean, like he doing defensive slides with 35-pound plates and stuff like that. And it's like you don't see stuff like that, and it's a reason why he's a good defender. Like, and he always working on his hips, working on ways to get better, stuff like that. And just watching that is like. It's definitely a great thing for me because I know that I could be that type of defender. So, and that's what I want to be, honestly. So, yeah. So, I mean, talking to him and stuff, like, I feel like I could definitely get there for sure.
Having been through this process before with a two-way contract, do you have a better understanding and an expectation going into the season of how the whole thing works?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you just coming as a rookie, like you don't really know much, like especially what you think you do. So just being able to have that experience and learn it. I mean, the best way to learn is by experience. So just experiencing that through my rookie year and learning everything that I learned. Like I know what to expect now, and I know what they expect from me. So it's definitely easier. It's easier on the mind too. So I mean, I feel like the confidence is just rising. So that's the best thing about it.
What are you looking forward to, or how do you prepare for being a leader on the team?
I mean, I just feel like I need to lead being more vocal this year with these guys, and also just leading by example. I mean, I feel like other players respect you more when you lead by example as well, and I mean that's a huge thing. And I mean, especially doing it in high school and college, and be able to carry over at the professional level, I feel like that's an important role, and you can't take that for granted. I mean, every team need that leader. And you know, I feel like I've learned from a lot of great leaders I've had in the past. So, I mean, I'm definitely up for it, and it ain't nothing new to me either, though. So, I'll be ready.
I'm sure you've been asked about it a lot and talked about it a lot already, but that game winner in preseason, what was that like? That moment? How much fun was that having that shot at the end of the game?
Yeah. I mean, that shot was definitely it was definitely a good experience to just let myself know about my body at the same time, like. Obviously, you know, recovering from an injury, stuff like that, and be able to play the first preseason game and be able to hit a game winner. Obviously, like it just boosts your confidence. But I mean, honestly, unfortunately, it sucks that I tweaked my ankle right after that. So it's just like I just gotta get back to that. So I mean, it is what it is. But that's in the past. I just gotta keep getting better.
Do you look at the way the current Hawks roster is built, like adding more length, defensive versatility, and kind of look at yourself as someone who can kind of fit in a role and really help that team get to where they want to get to?
No, absolutely. I mean, talk to the coaches and stuff, like, they know what I'm capable of doing, and I know what I'm capable of doing as well. I mean, they already said that if I stay healthy, there's no reason why I shouldn't be in a rotation, honestly. Like, these conversations that I had with some of the coaches and even the front office. So, I mean, I feel like there's no doubt that I fit in on this team. And, I mean, the players know as well. Like, they always talk to me about the improvement that I have, the abilities that I have and stuff like that. And, like, they're excited for me to get back healthy. I mean, a lot of people was actually very upset when I got hurt again. So, I mean, it's just good to have that support from your teammates and coaches. So.
Is that the game winner you hit? Is that an example of what you know you have to be able to do? Is, you know, a lot, you know, when you're in the G League and you're playing, you're in a rhythm, man. You're playing 25, 30 minutes, man. You're getting your shots. And, you know, when you're in the NBA, a lot of times they're inserted into the game and you got to be ready to go. You're not going to have time to, you know, get into the flow of the game. You've got to be in the flow of the game.
No, 1,000%. That's something that I talked about with Kyle last year, being able to sit down for 30 minutes and be able to come into a game and make your first shot. Like, honestly, that's the difference between staying in the game and coming out. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize that, but it's like when you sit down on the bench, you obviously, you know, you try to stay active as much as possible, knowing you're going to go in the game eventually. But, I mean, that's definitely, it ain't easy at all. Like, being able to sit down, not touch a basketball for 30 minutes or whatever the case may be, and to be able to come in and everybody expects you to make that first shot. Like, but that's what comes with being a shooter, though. Like, for me, I know what I am. I know who I can be. And, I mean, I accepted that. So, I mean, that's stuff that I work on. Like, I'll sit down and really go pick up a basketball and shoot a three. Like, that's nothing new. So it's definitely something I worked on and talked to Kyle about. I mean, obviously, he said that you might only get 3 or 4 shots in an NBA game. Like, can you make 3 or 4 shots? So it's like, that's huge. Can you average 10 points on 4 shots, stuff like that? Like, he talked to me about stuff like that. He said if you could do that, then you've been in the league for a very long time. So, I mean, I think I'm ready for that. So.
Seth, has going through these injuries taught you anything about yourself, or maybe reinforced something you already knew about yourself?
I mean, you definitely have a lot of time to think. I feel like I am learning a lot about myself too. Just always like, I've been through a lot of adversity throughout my life anyway, so it's just like, it ain't really nothing new, but it's just like, it can be frustrating, honestly, you know, dealing with injuries, because obviously you just want to play the game. Like, you want to go out there, you want to win, you want to, you know, showcase your talents, showcase that you could win games for this team, and then it's like, when you're down, it's like, people low-key just kind of forget about you, and it's like, it's tough how quick they forget about how good you are when you hurt. So it's just like, you know, every time you come back, it's like you just got to prove yourself again. And but I mean, I've learned a lot about myself. A lot of it's personal, but I mean, I've been having a lot of time to read, stuff like that. I read my Bible, read other books and stuff like that. So it's like, I feel like it's good for a mental and spiritual aspect for me. So, I mean, I've accepted it, and I mean, I like where I'm going with it though. So I don't let it tear me down or bring me down. So I try to keep my spirits high for sure. So.
What's your favorite Bible verse?
My favorite Bible, there's way too many. I actually just read a Bible verse this morning before I drove over here. I mean, the most recent one read was it was in Matthew 6 verse 6, and it was talking about like it was just talking about prayer. Like basically you shouldn't want people to congratulate you for praying out in public. You should pray in private because God will reward you for praying in private because He sees you at all times and stuff like that. So basically, like, don't do stuff for attention. Basically, is what I got from that verse. And if you pray and behind closed doors, God gonna reward you openly. So, I mean, that's what I read this morning. So, and I actually shared that with my family as well. So, yeah.
What are you doing when no one's looking, right?
Right. That's most important. Yeah.
Thank you, Seth.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's like being a pinch hitter, right?